Hey everyone, Jenny here from the Proven Group, and I am here with Joel, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of the Gyms Group. Obviously, everyone knows the Gyms Group. Let's call it as it is. Really, the biggest franchise model there is in Australia. I think we can comfortably say that, Joel.
Yes, it is. By numbers, yes. Yep.
Yes, by numbers, yes. Now, let's talk a little bit about this. I mean, what you've done at the Gyms Group is amazing in terms of, talking about franchising, dispelling a lot of myths, obviously working with Jim himself. Can you just share a little bit with us?
Yeah, no, thank you, Jenny. We were talking about it before off camera, but yeah, back in 2019, I didn't know what to do. I never planned to stay at the Gyms Group. I did law commerce degree. My plan was I was running the documents legal department. The plan was to go be a lawyer, and then I worked out I didn't want to do it. What was I going to do? Then back in 2019, we had a few bad franchising stories come out. And it was really, really annoying because I heard internally Jim talk about all this passionate stuff, all the stuff you see online now, but we had no vehicle to really share that. So I said, right, I started listening a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk back in the time, and let's take that Gary Vaynerchuk concept model and apply it to what we do at gyms. And, he didn't, it was a whole new thing for us. So basically set up all the accounts and just create a lot of video. And over the time you get better and better and better. But what was happening is that we were having people in our training. So we have every 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we have training here on site. We had 127 new franchisees come through the other day. And they started mentioning the videos. Because I watched you do this live, Facebook Live. I came into gyms and all that sort of stuff. And it's sort of reinforcing what we need to do from a video content point of view. And Jim's so passionate about the industry and franchising, but all the stuff he was saying, I heard all the time internally was just internal. No one knew about it. So it's basically, let's really take control of the narrative here and let's be our own media branded in a way internally, and let's just put out everything there. And when people hopefully look at franchising and what's available and what's there to do, they come across our content. And because of how transparent we are with what we put out there, they make the decision to choose us. And our numbers reflect that. So when I started doing the marketing and doing all this stuff back in 2019, it was sort of an experiment and a bit of a gimmick, but it built from then. Our numbers were around 3,650 franchisees. As of today, I had to look on the system, they're 5,280. And we had a stagnant period before that of around 10 years around the same number. So it's had a really, really big impact on our business with what we do. And it was all in the name of just getting all the stuff we know that's good about franchising from our perspective and just really putting that out there to the public, good, bad as well. It's not always positive stuff we put out there. We talk about failure rates and stuff like that, but be really transparent about it to counteract sometimes those stories which tar everyone with the same brush. And that's how it got me started on it and sort of developed it along the way. I had no idea what I was doing. And then, now I've got a bit more of an idea of what I'm doing, but you get better and better and better. And yeah, no, it's been great. And I get a lot of trust in me from Jim and from other people in leadership positions here to do so. And yeah, it's a really enjoyable experience.
Right. And, we're here talking about leadership, and I'm going to ask you a range of questions about leadership. Jim is a unique leader. Let's just put it out there.
Yeah.
Can you just share a little bit about what's inspired you working with Jim? What are the traits that you think that have actually allowed this? Because a lot of people have tried to do what Jim's done. They haven't succeeded.
Yeah, well, I think Jim's he is a unique individual. You can read his book, and you'll see all that. And if anyone who's dealt with Jim probably watching this will know.
Put the book in the link.
Yeah, they might know what he's like. He's got that real high drive in him. He's very relentless in what he wants, and he doesn't have any rest in his laurels. He's got no real social skills and stuff, which he puts in his book. So I'm not saying anything out of term. It's all business. But Jim's key strength is if he doesn't know something, he doesn't just assumes he knows everything. He gets people in, or he trusts his staff to go and do stuff. And he has this unwavering trust in people, which either works out well, like it has for my case, or it can burn him. All right. And then he just does that. He trusts people to do things and then just lets them go and do it. And you get the people who really run with that and do well, and the ones who don't burn him. So it's caused some issues over the time as well, but it's also worked out very well from him as well. He listens to ideas from anyone, doesn't matter what level in the organization. If it's a franchisee, they can email him or call him with an idea, and then he might go, yep, great idea, and then change the whole system based on a franchisee email to him. There's no blocks towards Jim. Day one of training, he puts his mobile number and email address on the board for everyone to put in their phones. So franchisees all the time will call him up with ideas. So he's really, really accessible, and he's got no ego. He's got no ego about who he is or anything like that. He's very humble in terms of how he operates the business. So doesn't wear his fancy suit, doesn't spend money on fancy cars or big corporate junkets or anything like that. Every day he's ultra consistent, but he takes ideas from everyone, which I think is his strength. He's got no ego about it. He's not like, I'm a multi-millionaire. Why am I listening to this admin person about an idea on the business. He's got no ego, very, very humble, and he has a lot of trust and faith in his staff and people in his business to do roles. So that's the key. And he's just such a good ideas man. He loves ideas and leaves it up for us to execute them. But he's got ideas all the time, always constantly learning. But he's a very humble person. You might not seem it sometimes with the content we put out, but he's a very humble person in terms of who he listens to and then implements things in business. And it's quick decisions as well. He makes a lot of mistakes, which he'll tell you, or which he puts out online. But it's really quick to make a decision here. There's no red tape.
I love it.
Yeah.
So interesting. Like such a big organisation, you'd think that there would be a lot of red tape, but
no, there's none at all. No,
really
none at all. I think that's the key. Like people, even members of the public, he might get an email out of the blue because his email address is on our website about some idea or something, and he will interact with that person like anyone else. And he's he's really, really accessible, and he prides himself on that. And he prides himself on every franchisee having his personal mobile number, and he will answer him at any time. You might be in the middle of a conversation with him. He'll just stop talking to you and go and put the franchisee on speakerphone and talk to him. So that's the priority of the business, and that's what sort of filters down to us as well. It's a franchisee.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
So Joel, franchising is a really unique sector. It's a unique business model. Franchising done well is amazing. Can you tell me, what are your thoughts about, moving into the future? We're living in a really pretty weird world. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? What do you think leaders in franchising need? What skills and attributes do they need to take them into the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think being open to new ideas is the biggest one. With technology moving the way it is, it's moving so much quicker and developing. How can you integrate that in your business to make things better for your franchisees? Marketing strategies as well. I think the marketing strategies that are currently done by most franchise brands are outdated and antiquated. I think you can control so much with your marketing about what you put out there. I say this quite often, but I think the best franchise recruitment vehicle in your business is an active YouTube channel. So I think more innovative marketing methods need to be taken up. There's a lot of other direct-to-consumer brands and stuff who do a lot of great marketing. I think that stuff can be applied to franchising. I think franchising in general is still fairly behind in terms of the marketing perspective for new franchisees. You got younger people. How do we get them into franchising? So how are you going to start putting this seed about being a franchisee and getting that into their head? And we have franchisees now who come in based on our TikTok videos. So I watch TikTok. Oh yeah, I watched a couple of those videos and I went to the website or YouTube and checked it out. And we've got 25-year-old guys coming in based on TikTok, So how many franchise brands in Australia are directly marketing for franchisees on TikTok? I dare say there'd be hardly any. So looking forward to the future, in 10 years, who's our ideal franchisee going to be? How are we going to reach these people? That's what we're doing at the moment, because we know the work we're doing now is going to hit those younger audiences. But I think the technology, gyms with technology as well. For someone who's 71 years old, he's so up to date with technology. He's not a technophobe at all. He really researches all these things and wants us to really drive better. And he spends a fortune on internal software development. It's the biggest cost in our business. It's where he spends most of his money. So continually improving technology and software. And also, I reckon most franchise brands, I don't know how accessible the leaders are in their brands, but be accessible to your franchisees. Why do they need to go to an area manager or something before they can get to speak with the person who's running the business? Like, be accessible to your franchisees at all time and let that be known to them. Get rid of having to go via area managers or middle managers to get to a CEO or COO. I think that's something that I've learned directly from Jim. Doesn't matter how big your organization is, be accessible at all times.
Oh, I love it. Who's inspired you to be the amazing you? Like, obviously, I've come to know you from the work you do online. I've interacted with gyms in previous lives. But, who's inspired you to be you?
Oh, look, I care about the business a lot. Even though I'm an employee, I do feel as though, I'm on call 24/7, as people will know. Look, who's inspired me? Look, Jim inspires me. That sounds a bit thing, but Jim's inspires me with how he lives his life. He does a lot of good stuff for people. Look, everyone's got an opinion on Jim, but I know him really, really well. I've worked with him for 12 years, 5 years, really, really closely. So he inspires me a lot with how committed he is to his family and to his franchisees. It's not an act; it's 100% true. In regards to our content, our marketing, what I've found in franchising, there was no peers in what I wanted to do. And that's not being rude or arrogant, but there's no brands I could really look up to in franchising. So I had to look at side brands. So I was looking at things like, what's the digital content strategy from a footy club's perspective, or from outside perspective for content segments and inspiration, and then let's apply that to gyms. And what are some big creators on YouTube doing, and let's apply that to gyms. And what's stuff that other franchises aren't doing, about talking about fees, transparency, and doing Facebook Lives and all that sort of stuff. And let's be a bit different, be a bit contrarian in our marketing and what we're doing. So Gary Vaynerchuk was a good one. Whether people like Gabe,
too. Whether
people like him or not, he's very controversial. But what I did is I gave Jim in the early days in 2019 a book called Crushing It. Jim listens to a lot of audiobooks, and the stuff I was telling Jim was based on that. And then Jim's coming back to me and quoting, "We've got to do this Gary V thing, blah, 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 blah." So he was in the early days was really Gary V, and I was basically documenting everything you do in the business with your franchisees, long form, short form, and putting it out there. So that's where a lot of the content models come from. But in the game with franchising, it's very hard to sort of look up to anyone who inspires us from a B2B point of view, because the B2B content, I think, lacks a lot in brands. It's very hidden. So it's very hard. I tend to look outside of franchising for creators, for our content ideas more than anything.
Really interesting, because I think that, I think that you can go cross industry and learn so much. Cross industry, cross country. I've always kind of been very like you, and looking to the US at brands that are doing things really well, looking at Europe, Asia, who's doing things differently, well, better, and can really we can learn from and kind of take the strategy and do our own thing with it,
And be different. Australia's we're so heavy. I think we're the number one in the world for most per capita franchises, right? So there's so many franchise options out there. So how are you going to stand out and be different in the market? And people, when they're researching, they're not just researching you only. They're going to a whole bunch of other things. And for us, the great advantage for us is they can go to our podcast. It's got 160 episodes. We're doing 1 or 2 a week. And, they can go to the YouTube channel and see daily fresh content. If they go to our channel compared to another brand in another field, you'd be crazy to go with the other brand, because they might have not done a video for 4 years or something like that. So being a bit contrarian in what you do, taking stuff from outside other brands, as you said, what you do, same thing what I do. I look outside stuff that I like and enjoy and think will be helpful, and we just try and apply that to franchising as best as we can.
I love it.
There's only so many ways you can go share a franchise testimonial, right? There's only so many ways you can do that. So how can we make that a bit different?
I love it.
Those sorts of things. But taking outside the industry and bringing it back into you is really good. But I think Gary V's approach in regards to what he did from a content back in the day, people will be familiar with Alec Hormozi and stuff like that now. I think that's what we based our stuff on in the early days.
I love it. Let's talk franchisees, because I think the strength and the business model of franchising is all about everyone winning. It's a collective business model. I love it. Philosophically, I absolutely love it. We know it doesn't always work for various reasons. I know that at the core of Jim is very passionate about franchisees being successful, them investing in something that is successful. What do you see as the core skills that franchisees need, either to have innately or to develop, to ensure that they're successful?
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Now in regards to that, really understanding that the market's changed in terms of leads. It's very competitive. There's a lot more digital players online now. So you can't just rely on, and now, because we're in mainly home services, you can't just rely on leads from our head office anymore for some divisions. You've got to get out there and do your local area marketing stuff. Using social media, we allow franchisees to actually have direct access and use social media. So using social media, where can you generate work via that? So using some more digital stuff to network online and different things, which we allow now because we know that's really, really effective. The mindset's a really big one. I think if you come into a small business or a franchise, we have around a 10% failure rate, which we put out in the first year, which we put online. And the people who fail, a lot of the times it's people who always blame the system or blame Jim because they didn't remove this complaint. People who blame others for their own circumstance are always never going to go well. So if you're having a really good self-accountable mindset where you know that a franchise is a great start and it means you're more likely going to succeed than if you're an independent, in Jim's case anyway. But then it's just the vehicle end of the day. You could use the brand and stuff, and it's up to you on what you're going to do to really drive your business forward as well. The franchise system will help you, but it's not going to be the be-all and end-all to if you're successful or not. You've still got to put in the hard work. Yeah, it's still your business, and you've got to put in the hard work. And the great thing with gyms is that we know statistically you're more likely to succeed than if you were as an independent. As a risk, if you're a risk-adverse person, buying a franchise is a far more, it's a better proposition. But being accountable for your own success, I think, is a big thing. Don't just rely on the franchise or the master franchise or the head office to dictate how successful you're going to be. It's ultimately up to you, and you've just got the leverage and the superpower with the branding that you can really build upon. But taking ownership, being accountable, no victim mindsets probably, and using social media, which has been great for us moving forward.
I love it. I love it. Thanks, Joel. I really appreciate you being so open and transparent about it. Love watching your journey, and we'll continue enjoying the journey. Appreciate you being here today, and look forward to more.
No, thanks for reaching out. Thanks for reaching out, Jenny. I'm glad to talk about this stuff. So you're probably one of the first people who's asked me about this, but thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about it and about what we do at the Gyms Group.
Thanks.